We're here with Dr. Peter Setlow, a professor of molecular biology and biophysics, the inaugural member of the Board of Trustees Distinguished Professors, trained at Swarthmore, Brandeis, and Stanford. I'm honored to speak to him today about predatory journals. I know that you have some good stories about predatory journals.
Would
you mind sharing those with us?
I have two stories that I can tell. The first was my son, who is in science, was an assistant professor at Texas A&M, and he received a request on his email one morning saying, "We'd like you to be an editor of our journal on the editorial board." And he was a young assistant professor, and he thought, this will look great on my CV. So he said, "Oh, sure." And then he found out it was a predatory journal. He tried to get his name off the journal masthead, and he never could. So he just sort of buried it and hoped it would go away. And it didn't destroy his career, but it didn't do it any good. Second, about 10 years ago, a colleague of mine here, a very distinguished full professor, and we had worked together, and we had some data that was just data on another species of bacteria that I work on, and so it wasn't going to be earth-shattering at all, but the data were good. And we were trying to find a journal to publish in. And so we found this journal. I won't say the name because maybe I'll get sued. I don't want to do that. And we sent it off, and about 3 days later it came back asking me to review the article. And I was one of the authors. I was number 4 out of 4. And I sent it back saying, no, I don't think this is right, but it is a brilliant piece of work, of course. Then we got a review in about 2 or 3 days, which is very unusual. And there were no comments other than, there are too many self-citations, this is going to hurt our impact factor. And so we cut those down a bit, and the paper was accepted and published. But it turns out it's not indexed by any of the major indexing, like Scopus, that indexes journals. And so, to all intents and purposes, the work that we did was lost. It's gone. It never appeared. Of course, we did get letters dunning us for $3,000 for several weeks until we finally managed to pay for it. And so that was my first introduction to predatory journals, and so I've become a little sensitized to it, and still am, because they're everywhere, and I, as well as I'm sure many other faculty at the Health Center, every morning when I open up my email, get 3, 5 requests. "Oh, will you publish in our journal? Dear honored sir, will you publish in our journal? Or will you be a member of our editorial board? Or we're going to have this conference and we really want you to speak. And we don't care what you speak about, as long as you pony up the money." Mm-hmm. So I've become pretty sensitized to this issue.
So for those who don't know, how would you define a predatory journal?
Now, it's no perfect definition. There are several features. Number one, they're open access. Now, not all open access journals are predatory, but I think the opposite is true. All predatory journals are open access. Number two, they solicit like crazy. You get emails from them all the time. 3, their editorial board may look really good, but very often the people on there are fake. The best known example of this, at least that I know of, there's a professional wrestler called Nature Boy. His first name is Rick. I forget his last name. And he was an editor of a journal, and he was given a Ph.D., even though I don't even know if he ever went to college. So a lot of the people on these editorial boards are there without their permission, and they'll never take you off. Mm-hmm. Or they may have people you've never heard of. So the provenance, if you will, of these journals is very questionable. They may give impact factors. They may be fake. Or they're impact factors calculated by rolling dice in the back of a bar somewhere. And they may claim that they're indexed by major indexing sources such as Scopus and so on, but they always change the name a little bit, like it would be SCOTUS instead of Scopus and so on. But and they may not even say they want money, but after they get the manuscript, you'll be dunned for money.
I heard that they do that kind of things with their names even, that rather than nature genetics, it
Yeah.
might be genetic nature
Yes.
or something, so that it'll be
Yes.
so close that you think you're getting into a good journal, and in fact you're
Yes.
later
Yeah,
you'll get the bill and it'll again not be searchable.
Yeah. The journal that I did publish in, I guess I can't say the name because they're dead now, was Journal of Bacteriology Research. Journal of Bacteriology is a very well-respected journal. It's been around for 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
Journal of Bacteriology Research. Changed the name a little bit to suck people in.
Right.
And it can be done. And there are people at UConn Health who are publishing in these journals, who are going to these conferences, these predatory conferences. Again, that have no real provenance. They may list a group of speakers that are going to be there, but there usually is, they've invited. They're not going to come.
So why do you think these journals and these meetings are on the rise?
Well, first it was the open access, because they're really cheap to do.
Mm-hmm.
The journals, they're easy because you don't have a physical product. So it's easy to do, number one. Number two, there's money to be made. Because if you send out 100,000 emails in the morning, that costs you almost nothing. And if 1% of the people send in an article at $3,000 a paper, what a deal.
Mm-hmm.
And the same with conferences. You just run a conference and you skim 50% of the money, even though it's not real. That's one. The second is there's such pressure on faculty to publish, to go to conferences and are speakers at conferences, to be on editorial boards because you get a check mark next to your name if you do these things. As a session speaker at a conference, check. Publish 3 papers in a reasonable journal, check, check, and check. Editorial board member, oh, check, check. They have stature.
Okay.
But this is all a fool's game.
So you're saying that as the part of the faculty who is looking to work on their curriculum vitae, it could have a blowback on them. It could have a negative impact?
Yes, it could well have a negative impact. For example, the one that I'm familiar with is the Senior Appointments and Promotions Committee at the medical school. I'm a vice chair, and we look at everybody's CV who's coming up for promotion, and we look at journals that people publish in. And it's relatively easy to identify a journal that is Scopus, cited in Scopus, has a real impact factor, is a known quantity, from those that are fake, predatory. And we look at those and say, this doesn't count. The same for an editorial board membership, the same for going to a conference run by some of the predatory conference people, one of which is being sued by the feds for false advertising right at the moment.
So if it's easy for the SAPC members to look for these, is it easy for the junior faculty then, or the assistant professors to start looking as well? Is that your advice to
My
them?
advice is yes, look. Don't just say, oh, wow, they asked me to write a paper for them. Wow. I mean, that happens when you reach a certain stature in a field. A friend of yours or somebody that you know will write and say, well, gee, we'd really like you to write a review article. That happens.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't happen to assistant professors. It does not happen.
Okay.
They're looking to troll you for money.
Okay.
And the outcome is not good. And certainly on the Senior Appointments and Promotions Committee, and to some degree on the Academic Merit Plan Committee that looks at this, may also say, oh, no, this paper that you've said is saying why I should get a raise is in a journal that doesn't count for anything.
Okay.
There are people who have said, if you publish in one of those, we're going to take one of your others away just to show you that you just can't do this.
So we're kind of in this gray area right now where the awareness of predatory journalism is just coming up, but soon the onus will be on the faculty member to be checking, so that it's not only detrimental to inadvertently find it later, but people will start thinking you've planned it.
Yeah. It calls into question the faculty member's judgment. And that's not something you want to do. So you want to avoid it. There's the pressure to publish. We all know that. Because this is the way you climb those golden stairs. This is the way you get grants and so on. And I'm sure granting agencies would look at this and say, that journal? That's a well-known predatory. Who is this person? This is not doing the faculty any good, and it's detrimental.
Okay.
So they need to be concerned about this and be sure about it.
It's no longer publish or perish. It's now publish wrong and potentially bury yourself.
Yes, it's true.
Okay.
Sad. This never existed when I was an assistant professor.
Right.
This is new.
What would you recommend to a faculty member, to a junior faculty member? Where should they check to see if they're doing okay? How should they go about making sure they're not falling prey to some of these predatory journals?
I think one thing you can do is you can talk to people, more senior people in the field, and say, I have this journal, what about it? And they may know. Or they may say, oh no, that's a well-respected journal in the field. Go ahead, good for you, good luck. Or they can go and see if that journal meets some of the criteria, always keeping in mind that the journal, if it's predatory, may lie. Right, bald-faced lie.
Okay.
To see, are they cited in Scopus, for example? Sure, a brand new journal that might be reputable may not yet be cited there, but if there's a number of keys, as I said at the beginning. Number one, it's open access, but there are open access journals that are reputable. Look on the editorial board. You know, are any of those people real? Do they actually publish? Talk to other more senior faculty. Do you know anything about this journal? If they say, gee, I've never heard of it, right away, little alarm bells should start going off. If it's published by a society that you know is real, the Society for Kidney Research or something that's real, then right away you say, okay, that's a little check mark. Says, okay, this one's probably okay. But if it comes out and has some really nice, funny name, Howard Tenon, who's chair of the SAP, was solicited to write an article for the Journal of Neuropsychoimmunology to try to cover a big area so we can get anybody can publish this. I suggested that Howard, we add the name microbiology and we could publish a paper together. Do your homework. The same with a conference.
Okay.
Do your homework. Talk to senior people that you respect and will be helpful and say, do you think this is real? Because the senior person may know that the conference organizer, the company that does this, is a well-known predatory conference ones. And there are lists. There's resources on the internet. You just go to Wikipedia and type in predatory conferences. You're going to get half a dozen pages of ideas and websites of other places which can help. The same for predatory journals.
Because I've heard of the Beals list, which I know now is defunct because Mr. Beal was being sued. Right. And there is another list that is, you need to pay to subscribe, and I'm not sure that our institution uses that. But there's a website that's put together by several journals and societies that are interested in allowing junior faculty to check for this. It's called thinkchecksubmit.org. And it has recommendations much like the ones you've just gone over, checking with faculty members that are senior to you. And they have lists of what open access journals people should be, or that journals should be part of, a society. And then if they're not on that, you should look askance at them.
Yes, those are very helpful. And they're relatively easy to do. We're not saying you have to spend, a week researching this.
Right.
It's really pretty easy.
It's less than 30 minutes to make sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do it before you submit, because you won't know.
Once you've submitted, they may hold on to the manuscript saying, if you don't pay us, and you can't take it away, which means
you can't submit
you can't submit somewhere else.
Right.
So you've shot yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
So it's really important to do a little homework. And if you get a solicitation saying, oh, we really want your manuscript, and if you submit it by the deadline of January 1st, you'll get a 50% discount. Don't. It's like the Nigerian scam that came out so often. Oh, if you just send me your bank account number, I'll transfer this 20% of these $2 million I have. Come on.
If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
It almost certainly is.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So it's a scam game. It's a scam game.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for somebody who's going up for promotion, and they may have fallen for this 5 years ago, 6 years ago, do you think they should address that in their personal statement?
The easiest thing to do, take it off your CV.
Okay.
Don't leave this on.
Okay.
Or if you're an editorial board member and it's a predatory journal, don't leave it on, because the SAPC might look at it and go, well, this was all right, but really?
But they'll start questioning you and your judgment, and are you worthy of promotion?
Yes, it raises a little red flag that says, whoa, let's look.
It's like your reputation. Once you've soiled it.
It's very hard to clean it off.
Right, okay.
Yeah, it's a real problem.
Okay.
Since these new journals come up all the time, somebody's being scammed, and otherwise they wouldn't do it.
Okay, great.
Good.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot, Anna. I
Okay.
really appreciaed the
You too.
opportunity here. Good.
Thanks.